So, serious question. What was the point of deporting Kilmar Abrego-Garcia in the first place if they were just going to bring him back? Now, the official story is it was a mistake. He wasn't supposed to be deported at all. But I would argue that he should have been on the list of potential deportations. The fact that he was deported by mistake shouldn't really matter. He should have stayed gone. He had no right to be here. I know that they apparently want him here to face charges, uh, but like I just don't see the point. He's already being punished in El Salvador. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like we don't really need to waste time and taxpayer money, trying him for crimes here when he's already in El Salvador. Like, there's just no point. Like, this whole thing was pointless. Big old pointless exercise. But yeah, Kilmar Abrego-Garcia returned from El Salvador to face criminal charges in the U.S. Man mistakenly deported to El Salvador, indicted on counts of illegally smuggling undocumented people, says Bondi. Shout out to The Guardian, by the way. Kilmar Abrego-Garcia, the man whom the Donald Trump administration mistakenly deported from Maryland to El Salvador in March, returned to the U.S. on Friday to face criminal charges. He should have been deported anyway. He was facing deportation. He just got caught up in a sting, basically, or he got caught up in not a sting. He got caught up in like a deportation sweep and ended up getting deported when he apparently shouldn't have been. Although that would, let me zoom in on my cat a little bit more. There we go. That's better. But he shouldn't have been. He should have been here in the first place. He was going to get deported anyway. But here we are. In a press briefing on Friday, the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said that a federal grand jury in Tennessee had indicted Abrego-Garcia on counts of illegally smuggling undocumented people as well as of conspiracy to commit that crime. Quote, "Our government presented El Salvador with an arrest warrant and they agreed to return him to our country," Bondi said of Abrego-Garcia. She thanked the Salvadorian president, Nayib Bukele, for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges. It seems like such a waste of time. This is what American justice looks like upon completion of his sentence, Bondi added. Abrego Garcia, a 29-year-old Salvadorian whose wife and young child in Maryland are U.S. citizens, appeared in federal court in Nashville Friday evening. His arraignment was set for June 13th when he will enter a plea, according to local media reports. Until then, he will remain in federal custody. If he gets out on bail, I'm going to be beyond pissed off. Like, if he gets out on bail, then this was a huge fuck up by the Trump administration. In a statement to The Hill on Friday, Abrego Garcia's lawyer, Simone Sandoval Moschenberg, of course, accused the Trump administration of having disappeared his client to a foreign prison in violation of a court order. Now, after months of delay and secrecy, they're bringing him back, not to correct their error, but to prosecute him. Well, I mean, they shouldn't have brought him back at all. But if they are going to bring him back, then at least he's going to be properly tried for the crimes he's committed. Sandoval Moschenberg also said, "quote This shows that they were playing games with the court all along. Due process means the chance to defend yourself before you're punished, not after. Except he's not an American citizen, so he doesn't get due process, or he shouldn't get due process." Sandoval Moschenberg said the White House's treatment of his client was, quote, "an abuse of power, not justice." He called for Abrego Garcia to face the same immigration judge who had previously granted him a federal protection order against deportation to El Salvador, quote, "to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent there." That, Sandoval Moschenberg argued, is the ordinary manner of doing things. And he said that is what the U.S. Supreme Court had ordered in April. No, well, no. What the U.S. Supreme Court had ordered is that if Bukele and El Salvador were willing to let him go back to the United States, and the U.S. was required to basically give him a ride, provide his trip home. Didn't require the U.S. to fight, Bukele administration to get him back or to demand his release. Bondi on Friday maintained that federal grand jurors found that Abrego-Garcia has played a significant role in an abusive smuggling ring that had operated for nearly a decade. The Attorney General added that if convicted, Abrego-Garcia would be deported to El Salvador after completing his sentence in the U.S. Just deport him. This is so pointless. It's stupid. Officials on Friday portrayed the indictment of Abrego-Garcia by a grand jury in Tennessee as vindication of their approach on immigration enforcement. Quote, the man has a horrible past, and I could see a decision being made, bring him back, show everybody how horrible this guy is, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One, adding that it had been the Justice Department that decided to bring Abrego-Garcia back. Okay, so apparently it wasn't like Trump's call, it was Bondi's call. According to the indictment, Abrego-Garcia worked with at least 5 co-conspirators to bring immigrants to the United States illegally and then transported them from the U.S.-Mexico border to other destinations in the country. So he's what we call a coyote. Abrego-Garcia often picked up immigrants in Houston and made more than 100 trips between Texas and Maryland from 2016 to 2025, the indictment says. The indictment also alleges Abrego-Garcia transported firearms and drugs. According to the indictment, one of his co-conspirators belonging to the same ring was involved in the transportation of immigrants whose tractor-trailer overturned in Mexico in 2021, resulting in 50 deaths. Sandoval Moschenberg called the criminal charges fantastical and a kitchen sink of allegations. I mean, this guy has been in and out of the court system for years, pretty much the entire time he's been in the country. So I don't think it's fantastical at all. But of course, this is his lawyer. His lawyer would say this. Quote, this is all based on statements of individuals who are currently either facing prosecution or in federal prison, he said. I want to know what they offered these people. Abrego-Garcia entered the U.S. without permission around 2011 while fleeing gang violence in El Salvador. So he is an illegal, which means he should have just been deported full stop. Despite the judicial order meant to prevent his deportation to El Salvador on March 15th, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials deported him to El Salvador after arresting him in Maryland. He was held in the so-called Center for Terrorism Confinement, a controversial mega prison better known as CCOT. The Trump administration subsequently admitted that Abrego-Garcia's deportation had been due to an administrative error, but it has repeatedly cast him as an MS-13 gang member on television, a claim which his wife, a U.S. citizen, and his attorney staunchly reject. It's not just something they say on television. He's been called, like he's been verified to be or not verified, but he's been found to be an MS-13 gang member in 2 separate court cases in the United States. So yeah, he should have been deported a long time ago. Abrego-Garcia has had no criminal record in the U.S. before the indictment announced on Friday, according to court documents. Yeah, except for his, wife filing restraining orders against him twice for abuse. But, the Guardian is just lying about that. On April 4th, federal judge Paula Zinnes ordered the Trump administration to facilitate and effectuate Abrego-Garcia's return from El Salvador after his family filed a lawsuit in response to his deportation. The Supreme Court unanimously upheld Zinni's order a week later. In an unsigned decision, the court said that Zinni's decision properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego-Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. A Friday statement from U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland said the Trump administration had finally relented to his demand to afford Abrego-Garcia due process. Once again, not a U.S. citizen, career criminal, does not deserve due process. Not in my opinion. This is not about the man, said Van Hollen, who visited Abrego-Garcia in El Salvador in April. It's about his constitutional rights and the rights of all. He doesn't have constitutional rights. He's not a U.S. citizen. Do I have constitutional rights in Japan? No, because I'm not Japanese. This isn't hard to understand, you shitlibs. Bukele wrote on X in part that he would not refuse the Trump administration's request to return for the return of a gang member to face charges. Reuters contributed to this report. Yeah, I didn't even need to read that last sentence. It just kind of popped out there. Yeah, this has nothing to do with this. This is just, the Guardian begging for money. Yeah, no, like I said, this is a big waste of time. It's a waste. We shouldn't be bothering with this. This guy has no right to be here. Like, here's the thing: even if he's not an MS-13 gang member, even if he's not guilty of being a coyote, uh, even if he never actually beat his wife, he is here illegally. Nobody's denying that. Not even his own lawyer. Like, nobody's denying that he's an illegal. He needs to be deported, regardless of everything else. Everything else that's going on around him is just kind of sweetening the deal, making it even more apparent that he needs to be deported. Full stop. Anyway, feel free to agree or disagree in the comments below, and make sure you smash that like button, and follow all of my links to all of my alternate channels, and come check me out on Clown World Gaming. Specifically where I game, where I stream video games Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, sometimes Saturdays. And then, make sure to check out Clown World Chronicles, which, streams Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, to usually about 10:30. It's about a 2.5 hour stream, whatever. But yeah, do all the algorithm stuff for me. Feel free to throw me a bone.